To achieve what we want in life, we have to make sacrifices. Small deeds such as being kind and polite to others and prioritizing them when you don't have to are not always convenient, but will make you feel good doing so. Tim Cruz, based in Virginia, does just that. He helps others find physical homes, but he's equally interested in making sure his actions help others find a spiritual home as well. Enjoy this episode, and be sure to share it with a friend.
Welcome to another episode of the Somebody's Son podcast, where biting your tongue is never allowed. Young men battle with the pressures of manhood every day. Each episode, we tackle topics that focus on worth, actions, and relationships. Our goal is simple: help men win the war with themselves.
Living in Fairfax or Woodbridge.
Woodbridge. Working in Fairfax.
And God just tell you to move.
Oh, damn.
And let's be clear, you're still killing it, but you were crushing real estate.
Oh yeah, it was prime. It was prime time. It was prime.
I remember because I had a couple. My guy from Jersey, you hooked his you did his son's first home, Marmo.
Yeah, Marmo. Yeah, I did his home and also his sister or brother's home. Yep, good people. Great people.
That's not, maybe it's more normal than what is advertised, but it's not normal to see successful entrepreneurs in business put on the hat of the pulpit as well. Is that safe to say, or am I just out of touch?
It's true.
Most folks, they go that route. They haven't had necessarily the success in business.
Yeah.
Not knocking those people. That's like, we're not knocking pastors who are full-time pastors. That's not what we're doing.
Yeah.
I'm just saying your trajectory is a little different in the sense that you were able to be a full-time entrepreneur in real estate. Meaning spending time with church is actually taking time away from your business.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I'm literally like, I'm dual career. But for me, like when God called me to plant the church like 5.5, 6 years ago, I'm like, I'm cool. I'm killing the game in real estate. I got a squad. We pray in the morning, read the Bible together as a sales team. I'm cool. He's like, either you go or I'm gonna get you. I was like, yes, sir. And so I went and I'm doing a career. But for me, for church and pastoralship, that's for free. I take no money from that. And so when we get the budget to be $1 million, $2 million, $10 million, that is my sacrifice to God. I feed my family pumping cribs and selling houses. But I do church as a sacrifice to God. That's free.
I know we shoot live. Can you rewind that again? Say that again, only because I know some folks that struggle with tithing and offering because folks are on salary at church. So at your church, you don't take no salary.
No salary. So for me, right, I feel like whatever God calls you to, and not knocking those who take income, because for some it's like occupation, also vocation, their calling. But for me, when Holy Spirit told my heart to plant a church 5.5, 6 years ago, it was go plant the church, let it be a real sacrifice. And so the way that I eat, if I don't sell a house, I don't eat. And I got 4 people at home to feed, a wife and 3 kids. But for me, when I go to church and preach and pastor, pray for people, counsel people, and just serve as a pastor, that's my sacrifice to God. That's no money. Wow. Zero. And in our community, especially the African-American community, they have issues because they say, well, I'm tithing, I'm returning a tithe to God's house, but the pastor got the brand new Benz, the brand new Escalade, the brand new Tahoe. And so therefore I'm done with church. So it was kind of twofold for me. One part, God put it on my heart and told me that. Second fold was, if I can help more people encounter Jesus Christ by not taking money, let's get the people. And Matthew 6:33 says, if you seek first God's kingdom, all that I need will be given unto me. And so I'm like, so whenever I have a pickle, like if I could sit here and say, I'm on paper a net worth millionaire, I'm not, brother. We still got debt. And so for me, as I'm seeking God's purpose for my life, I'm like, God, you see what I'm doing, right? You see I'm grinding for you. So therefore, I'm not taking thought about where money going to come from, how I'm going to eat. He going to take care of me. If he feeds the birds of the air, how much more shall he feed me going to a stadium, taking a faith move, and 59 people getting saved in one Sunday? And so I don't know what he's going to do, man. I'm just saying, like, whatever you want to do, I'm like a football player. Put me in the game, coach. If you're going to do anything significant in Fredericksburg, Stafford, Spotsy, Caroline, Quantico, Woodbridge, I'm ready. Put me in the game. I've been practicing for this.
I feel like, and I don't want to speak for you, I feel like back then we, at least I did, I knew eventually I'd walk in my purpose. And so it wasn't convenient for me back then. So I felt comfortable not being who I felt like I was called to be.
But I think at some point, I think you knew that you was different. Like I knew you was. It's kind of like you ride by Krispy Kreme, right? And the light is on, like, the light is on. They're going to be hot. And people can tell when someone's light is on or light is off. If your light is off, you're like a walking dead man. Like he ain't in purpose, she ain't doing nothing. But I could tell back then his light was on. And I also in the same boat. We was wilding back then.
We were.
But we would be in our current environments, and we knew what reality was. We both did. So light been on for you. Yeah,
I shared this earlier. It's because I think. And I met your parents, so I can say this about your parents. Your parents remind me a lot about my mom, or very similar about my mom. They did a good job telling us what we were not. So even when we got into trouble, not living up to our morals or things of that nature, or the way that we were guided, there was only so far we were willing to go.
Yeah. It's like the edge right there. Mama told me that. Go back a little bit.
Yeah.
True.
You was about to say something, though. I don't want to cut you off.
I honestly, I'm just in awe. I'm in awe about
me and you. We in the same boat.
I wish I had a question to ask you,
but
it's how you started about, your calling to the pulpit is a sacrifice to God. That's powerful. And I want to explore that a bit more because I've recently, restarted my faith walk, but I've been in church in the past. And that was the first thing that one of the things that kind of turned me off. I thought I had a very good church home. And then I think you were in that sermon also.
I was. We won't speak on that, Pastor.
We're not going to talk about the specifics.
Yep.
But that particular sermon in that day pushed me away from the institution of church. And therefore it kind of pushed me away from me studying, reading the Bible, being open about spirituality with other people. You know, knows I've been very private in that walk, and very, very recently in the last 6 to 8 months, I've been more deep into it. But I want to explore that a bit more. What you're in a position where you could, and I want to say exploit, but you're in a position where you could benefit financially from the church, but you don't do it. How do you ever second guess that? Do you ever challenge your peers? Like how do you carry that weight every day and not think and continue to do so? You can easily make a change and be for self, but you don't. How does one flirt that line?
Do I second guess it? A lot. I do. Reality. Because anytime you walk in this plank and you're trusting an invisible man that dwells in the heavenly place, it's like, bro, I can't even see you, but I can feel you talking to me. And so what I don't like is when a pastor would say, well, I'm doing it, I'm committed, I never get weary. We all do. It gets weary being a good father. It gets weary being a good husband. So how much more then shall it get weary trying to obey this godly thing that goes against what everyone around me is doing? So yes, it does. And it comes back for me, man, to this posture of, I know someday, right, I have to behold this man face to face, Matthew 25, that we'll walk in this line together. And by the way, the same line that y'all going to be in, or anyone, TD Jake's going to be in, we're going to be in the same line, the judgment line. And I have to look this man face to face, and he will either tell me, Tim, well done, my good and faithful servant. Or he'll say, depart from me, you worker of iniquity. And so the only reason I told God yes to the call, I would have night dreams and daydreams of me beholding his face. And I'm there like, Jesus, I've been praying to you all this time, there you go. And he would say, no. I told you to go plant this church and do it my way. But because you did not do it, depart from me. And that's talking about not just like right now, That's eschatological. That's like end times. When God comes back, when he cracked the sky, what's going to happen then? And so we can't get caught up, and myself included, in what's happening today. I'm putting in work now, so like at some moment when I behold his face, I can worship him and be okay with that. And everyone has their own conviction. So what he told you to do, different from what he told me to do, in you. And so I just say, man, whenever he gives you an assignment, it's always heavy. When he took that cross, that Roman cross, the Calvary for us, and took it there, it was heavy. It was heavy. By the way, there was this African brother who shows up, Joseph of Cyrene, who people say, well, that's the white man's religion, right? African brother shows up. He helps Jesus Christ take the cross a little bit, and he came down for Passover. And so it's sometimes like that. God would just say, take this burden. Like, I didn't ask you for that. Take this burden. I didn't ask you for that. It's heavy. But when you're serving God, the heavier the cross, the more that he can use you. And again, I'm like, man, if you're going to do something significant, and we read about the Bible, him healing blind people, him healing people, his friend who was dead, Lazarus, raising from the dead. If you're doing things like that in the Bible, I don't want to just read the text of the Bible and know what you used to do. What you doing today? Where you at today? And if I can be a part of that game, I will suffer the weariness of being obedient to get that with you.
Can someone else? This is heavy, man.
No,
Well,
go ahead.
I would just ask this because from my perspective, of course, I'm in this area or this age of my life where I'm starting to question everything. And, I broke away from, in the house, my parents are Muslim, so they practice Islam. And I broke away from sort of, religion seems so institutional for me these days, right? And I think part of it was absolutely because I see in the media that there are pastors and stuff that are, flying like Boeing 747s and, things of that nature. And I had a good conversation until maybe like 4 a.m. with a dude who's a friend of a family friend, and he's a missionary. Yeah. And it rubbed me the wrong way, man. He was telling me things like, if you're not Christian, then you're going to hell, and things of that nature. That was really, it really rubbed me the wrong way. So do you feel like, and I've seen this with a lot of my friends, do you think it's just this age, or do you feel like with younger people nowadays, there's less, I don't want to say practicing, but they're less devoted towards like religion. Have you seen that in your congregation where there's less young people than normal?
We are.
Okay.
We are. And I think not all of the reason, but part of it is it's the way that grandma and granddaddy and mama and daddy perceived it to us, right? Mm. It's kind of like, if somebody tells you a secret, if it get from like you to like person 40, it's a different story. Mm-hmm. And so when people can go and distort the true gospel of Christ in different ways, and like the guy told you, if you're not Christian, you're going to hell. While I believe it's 100% true, it's all in the way that I would share that with you. And so the perspective must be to the young people. I'm not here pointing at you and telling you like I'm better than you. I'm a pastor. I'm saved. I pray every day. You don't. No, because guess what? End of the day, the same struggle you got, y'all got, I got the same struggle, right? And so when I think it's also old church, the pastor would say, y'all going to hell. Y'all ain't this. Y'all ain't that. I'm saying, guess what? Me too. You hurting today? Me too. You got issues with money going on? Guess what? Me too. You feel sad or stressed today? COVID-19 going on? Me too. And so I think it's the way that we have been told it, that people say, you know what? I'm cool with that. I'll just go and do my own thing. It's 2021. I'm okay. But I feel like, man, if someone would raise up and really tell the gospel of Christ in a loving way, non-conviction, because you got to notice how Christ in the Bible moved, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and we only have 3 years of his life recorded. He pops up, he's born in a manger as a baby. They lay him in the manger. He then pops up 12 years old. He's going to the temple with his earthly mama and daddy, Mary and Joseph. They go there to worship. They go back home. He stays behind. And then Mary's like, Jesus, like, why did you stay? You 12 years old. And he says, woman, did you not know I must be about my Father's business? And from 12 to 30, 18 years, there is radio silence. And I'm thinking, what were you doing? I don't know. Ask him in heaven one day. Then from 30 to 33, he never, ever approached people making accusations. It was all about love. And so we have been told, this generation, millennials, Gen X, Gen Y, whatever they are, we have been told that God is this mean man in heaven that's angry with you. And the reality is, while he may not like the way that we live sometimes, he sent his only son to the earth to die for us. I got 3 babies. I got a 6-year-old son, a 3-year-old girl, and an 11-month-old girl. I'm not giving my son up. But God sent his only son to the earth to die just for us. That means he loves us. And all we have to do is simply accept Christ into our heart and say, you know what? I don't know how this really works and the religion around this or the structure around this, but I know for a fact that it's been recorded from history that you are the only human being in history that went to a cross, executed, whipped, pierced in your side, and they put you in a tomb, by the way, that was borrowed from a rich man named Joseph of Arimathea. They put you in the tomb, Mary Magdalene, and then your main guy, Peter and John, go to the tomb and you're not there. And then you show yourself and you say, Mary, why are you crying? I told you I was going to raise from the dead. And then you go and show yourself to people on multiple accounts and you've been seen by many people. And then you ascend back into heaven.
So the question I have for you.
Okay, go ahead. No, you're all.
You said you believe that if you are not a Christian, you will not go to heaven, right?
According to the Bible.
According to the Bible. But there are cultural influences that could prevent people from hearing about Christianity or Jesus as a whole.
What happens to those people?
How do we account for that? Right, because there is a Bible, but there's also a Quran and a Torah and, Confucianism and Hindu. How do we account for that within the framework of the Bible?
He uses superheroes like y'all fellas to invite me here today to spread this gospel to y'all's tribe. And he lets people, he'll come and he'll put his spirit inside of people, someone like me who had really business savvy, right? Had my own track going. And he'll use what he taught me in business intellect. And he'll say, now go use that same thing and go spread the gospel. And so all he wants to do is find out who can he trust? Who can he use to be put in the game to go tell people? And so those churches, those pastors, those evangelists, those preachers who are not telling the good news or telling it the wrong way, Ali, for you going to hell. Telling it the wrong way, they have to give an account for that. And so now you see movies pop up all over the place. God is real, right? Part 1, part 2. And so if you watch closely, he is meticulously using men and women, boys and girls, to get him throughout the earth. And so you may never pick up a Bible. You may never go to church, but if you encounter, for example, me in the barbershop, or you encounter me at Target, it then becomes, it's bigger than, am I going to just be a preacher on Sunday and act like a fool on Monday through Saturday? Or will I walk out my Christianity and walk out love Monday through Saturday? So whether or not I'm in the 4 walls of a church or not, if people encounter me, they encounter God's presence. And so the Apostle Paul talks about in Corinthians, Thessalonians, we're living epistles. We're living letters towards God. We're living sacrifices. So therefore, if you don't get a Bible in your hand, if you encounter me, I hope by the way I approach someone or speak to someone, they can say, man, you a little bit different. What's wrong with you? And I say, I don't know, man. I'm an imperfect dude. I'm a trip. I got issues. I be sad sometimes, up sometimes, down sometimes. But this dude named Jesus I met years ago changed my life. And he cool.
Andy Stanley says, because Garrett and I live in Atlanta. He says people should be so envious of the way Christians treat people that they become curious. Mm-hmm. And I think what you're saying is you can live your life 15, 20, 50 years and never walk in a physical structure.
That's right.
You may not have paid a tithe or an offering. But if you experience me, Tim Cruz, I'm going to treat you in such a way that you at least become curious. And if you're curious enough to believe, I'll see you in the same line.
That's right.
That's interesting.
And he will use me in the business world, selling a house to a client. I don't go and say, I'm a pastor. I'm just Tim, a realtor. How you doing? And then by the way I treat them, they go and dig on social media, YouTube. True story. I just helped this beautiful family. They're buying a brand new construction house right now. I never once told them I was a pastor because if I'm selling your house, I'm doing my job. That's how I feed my family. They found out, oh, so you pastor a church? And I said, yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Oh, and you guys are online now. I said, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am, we are. They then come to church. They then come to the stadium. And by the way that, not because I'm perfect, the way that God used me as a puppet on a string, I'm living for him. I'm committed to him. He used me to reach them all through a house sale. And so when I'm selling homes now, it's bigger than me making a commission check. He's like, I got you in marketplace ministry to go reach people in the community that you can't reach on Sunday morning. But if you be obedient to me, you'll reach white people, black people, Asian people, Hispanic people, and you'll help get the gospel to more lost souls.
You see what I love about the pod is that, again, we've gone down a path that we were not even supposed to. This is why you got to have unscripted conversations. Two things I would say. First and foremost, you said something, we're told to make sense of the world, but then we're condemned for doing so. I don't know where that comes from. That's not in my faith. Like, my mom didn't teach me, you got to do it my way. In fact, it's the opposite. She told me to be so curious to challenge my faith. Mm. And once I began to truly challenge faith as a whole, not just Christianity, but faith as a whole, I started to realize what spoon-fed on the back end doesn't match the history. Mm. Like when you said, oh, Jesus is a white dude. Where's Jesus a white dude? Now, if you go look at pictures in a country that's only 300 years old, possibly, but the rest of the world looks at the U.S. like, y'all only 300 years old. So y'all really think y'all know about 1800 BC or 500 AD? Like, not you specifically, but you get what I'm saying?
I saw a Black Madonna in Barcelona. I know what you mean, yeah.
So, like, studying abroad in Ireland taught me the concept of time. Americans who are curious don't OD on the arrogance of being American. Mm. Like, cool, yeah, we have a Declaration of Independence. But bro, like there was people moving around, moving and shaking long before we came up with 50 stars and 13 stripes.
Right.
And I think to that point, I think if we see folks spend the time to actually go do that, you'll find out that whatever you thought was told in a country only 300 years old, some of those things they won't pass the test of history. Yeah. And the reason I say that is because you have shows now like The Chosen, where I think the director is actually a white guy, depicting that time period based on, forget if you believe in faith, like just from a historical perspective, you can't live in Africa and not tan, bro. Like the melanin of the people there. So what I'm saying is I think we can't expect organized institutions to do all the work for us, regardless of faith. We're not here trying to
Very good point.
You know what I mean? We're not forcing people to believe in anything. I just think it's dope that men are having a conversation on spirituality, but go do some, you can't, it ain't gonna be Uber Eats for faith, bro. But even if you, I just want to harp on this last point. Even if you start in a business, whether it be in realty, whether it's trading stocks, whether it's owning commercial spaces, are you gonna think that the Uber Eats of whatever you're working on is going to happen? No, you got to go do your homework. And what I'm saying is I think a lot of times has the context of faith been tainted and used to try to drive people in a certain perspective, regardless of faith? Absolutely. Because people are imperfect. And so some people OD on their imperfect ways, and then they find themselves 5, 10, 15 years down the road, and they have completely tainted the very thing that they actually believed at one point. But at the same time, we can't have you shouldn't be a lazy person.
So you have to do the work. And it's something that I like that point. You have to do the work. An institution not going to solve it for you. I like the point of getting perspectives, and you study you haven't read them, but you've read studies about them. Mm-hmm. I met a guy, I was doing a hiking tour in the Atlas Mountains in Morocco, and it's a Middle Eastern country, so the majority of the population is Muslim, right? He said something, I would never ever forget this, man. He said something to me. He said, we were talking, we were in a group, but we were kind of leading the pack and talking. He said, Chris, I am a devout Muslim. He said, but I can't be a devout Muslim if I haven't studied the Jewish faith or the Christian faith. He said, I've probably read the Bible more than you have.
Likewise.
He said, I know, I've met people who come on this tour and they're Christians and we have conversations, but I can tell you how many times that the Virgin Mary is mentioned in the Bible compared to the Quran. The Virgin Mary is mentioned more than the Quran than she is in the Bible, right? So this man who is, takes the time and effort to not only study his religions, but the other major religions of the world, he feels that that's his duty to study other religions in order to be an even more faithful and strong Muslim, right? So for me, I understand if you don't accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, the Bible says you're going to hell. But I know a guy who studied all of them multiple times, and he's still reinforced in his faith, even though he read the Bible front and back 10 times over. How does one I'm trying to figure out how we remove the doubt, right? Because I've seen, I've used those doubts personally for me to be able to not deal with it. How do we fight that conflict?
Can I before, because you're the resident expert on this, not me. But I do, you brought up something that I want to make sure we touch on. Are y'all familiar with Air Force Ones? Y'all seen Air Force Ones? Who's the brand that makes Air Force Ones? Nike makes Air Force Ones, right? Depending on where you are in the country, they call them something different.
Flags, where I'm from.
They call them flags. If you live in the Northeast, they call them uptowns.
Yeah.
You in DC, they call them DCs, right? If you go some places, they call them ones. Are they still the same shoe? Now, am I saying all religions are the exact same? That is not what I'm saying. I'm not saying all the religions are the exact same. I am saying, though, if you're in Greece, the name Yanni translates to John, just like the name Yahshua translates to Jesus. I think a lot of times as believers and unbelievers, we focus on the rhetoric
and the labels
of faith.
And the labels of faith.
The labels of faith, the structure of faith, as opposed to realizing the intent or the message, or what am I supposed to gain from this? That's why I love, we ain't seen each other in 10 years, but I could tell you was on this vibe just from seeing you on Instagram. I knew you was moving differently, because what you're saying is, look, I can care less how you end up finding what I find to be true. Honestly, bro, I'm actually cool not answering all their questions. I think it's very arrogant for me to feel like I can answer everybody's questions about faith. It's 7 billion people on the planet. Who am I to think that I can answer 7 billion people's questions about faith? No, what I challenge them is, go get into that for you. Go find that for you. But while you're doing that, I still understand that whether you black, white, brown, I still have a duty to love my neighbor. And if I see somebody getting their neck kneeled on, regardless of what your faith is, I know that's wrong. Yeah. Like, to me, that's what's most important. That message of, how am I living like the person who created?
You are 100% correct. Yeah. But if we expect to have change on a grand scale, we have to, in my opinion, we have to remove the labels around religion. Like, honestly, it's dangerous to say you have to accept Jesus Christ in order to have eternal favor or eternal life. That's a dangerous statement to say, because now if you impress that upon a young individual, they may see a person who knows that they come from a geographic area was probably not accessible to that particular type of religion, right? Or that system. Now that person thinks something different about that individual. Now they're less than because you look like you don't believe in what I believe in.
But bro, I think it's a slippery slope. I don't disagree with what you're saying. I think we do that with faith and we don't have to. Every day, somebody either in my house cooks or we go to a restaurant where somebody is cooking. If I use a knife to stab you, it is a weapon. But if I'm not using that knife to create harm, I'm perfectly fine with it being in your hands. I think what you're speaking towards is sometimes this gospel has gotten in the hands of people who intend to do harm.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There's a difference between a weapon being in the hands of somebody or a tool being in the hands of somebody who intends to do harm and somebody who intends to do love.
My question is, you brought up a great point. So my question is, do we need to focus our attention on trying to convince people or change people? Or do we need to focus on adjusting, challenging the institutions that place those labels?
I don't even think we got to do those. I don't even agree with those as the only two questions. I think the same way I feel comfortable going to Tim's house and I ain't been there in 10 years. Mm-hmm. So we need to set this up, talk to Key, we'll make it happen. Yeah. The same way I feel comfortable going to his house and I didn't have to check her credentials when she's cutting. You've come to my house. You and your wife have cooked at my house and made an amazing spread, by the way. But I didn't feel uncomfortable with you all cooking in our house, although you had things that could actually kill me if you leave the gas on too long, if you might get mad and throw the knife at me, right? I think we have to focus on that. We keep focusing on, and for some reason it happens when we come to faith, but it doesn't necessarily happen in other places. We're totally fine with Tim making success in real estate in just his hometown and becoming a very successful entrepreneur in real estate. We're totally fine with you doing it in your hometown. We're totally fine with him making investment trades with just his portfolio. He don't gotta own a hedge fund. The way you scale faith, I think is exactly what you said is everybody just needs to do what they're supposed to do and make sure that we're constantly challenging our own intent, because I never want people to come around me and feel like my faith means them harm. I never want them to feel that way. And if the rest of us are doing that, we've seen it happen in everything else.
We gotta change institutions, man, because I think you're seeing it from your eyes, but there are a lot of people who hang on to their word. And it's dangerous. I just think it's dangerous because you can end up pushing more people away. And the only reason I can say it is because I've been pushed away by people who hang their hat on just, if you don't believe in God, you're going to hell.
Do you think they mean harm or good or love?
Excuse me?
When you talk to those people, did you walk away feeling like they meant me well or they meant me harm?
Harm.
And that's what I'm saying. If my goal is to make impact, I don't have to necessarily go in the institution to do so. Mm-hmm. I can live my life in a meaningful way. And then from there, folks may become curious and then they got to go on their own pursuit. Mm-hmm. We're sitting in a building your wife and you own, right? Mm-hmm. You didn't design this space. It didn't mean you didn't contribute. Mm-hmm. You did your contributions.
I moved the couch.
T, where do I lift? What do I paint?
Hey, I moved the couch,
right? And that's all I'm saying. You didn't, to create scale change in this building, you didn't have to figure out how to do it all. Mm-hmm. And all I'm saying is I'm cool with lifting couches when it comes to my faith. Mm-hmm. I'm cool with having platforms where we can at least talk about spirituality. Mm-hmm. We ain't here to try to convert people. We just want to be able to, men having conversations on spirituality, I think is a good thing, right? But this is just a seed being planted. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You gotta go and do your own homework and don't be lazy. And at the same time, feel comfortable with knowing that there probably is a complementary relationship out there in whatever faith walk that you go down. Mm-hmm. But I think I have concerns if people feel like we here to answer all your questions. We ain't here to answer all your questions. Look, that would be very arrogant of anybody to feel like they can answer every question. So
I just want to make sure, I told a story about the guy in Morocco because that was impactful to my life. Yeah. And the fact that, and this is not a challenge, it's just a general statement, the fact that he took the time to study all the religions that he could, he still found solitude in the one that he was born in.
Sure.
I respect it. And I just want to make sure if we wanted to change how people feel about religion, how people feel about church, it's all rooted in an institution, right? So I would hope the institutions in the future adjust how they communicate, what they instill in people, because we really want the word to spread about just in faith in general. We have to change how we have that conversation.
Agreed. And we'll take it a step further, which is going to be dope. We got Richard Duncan's going to join us, which is going to be amazing to have two pastors back to back. But I don't necessarily want to change the way people feel about faith. I do want to change the way that they feel about people who claim faith.
Yes, and I want to change
religion. And faith, we often talk about religion. You said it yourself to me one time. Religion and faith is two different things.
Family and relatives are two different things.
And I want us to reevaluate the institutions like higher education, church, all of these justice system, all these institutions in 2021 and going forward need to be changed.
It's interesting to think about the way that human beings innovate and build upon things. Yeah. But religion was never one of the things that was innovated.
I disagree. I think faith-based systems have seen innovation, including religion. My man only wore one suit to church since he started his church. That's a change. I think what you're saying, and this is why I say I don't agree that this generation is the first one to challenge faith. I think if you subscribe, which I subscribe to, that people only change if they're, you can't force somebody to change. They have to be upset, miserable with the current situation. And then that's what causes them to change. So, you can tell a man or a woman to save their dollars and save, but it's until they might not do that unless they say, hey, I'm miserable with not having enough, or I'm miserable with being broke, and now I'm going to save. I think what you're seeing in this generation is they're more educated, and what they're seeing is they're looking at these institutions similar to Chris, and they're upset with the institution. And so now they're becoming a little bit, probably more vocal, and there's more channels for them to be vocal. Like, 100 years ago, if you was upset with an institution, there was no Instagram or Facebook or internet for all these people to have a centralized social hub. Yeah. And this is why I think the church could really lead. Social hubs are important. Schools, churches, workplaces. And we have a ripe opportunity to figure out how do we want these social hubs to navigate and what the rules of engagement will be at these social hubs moving forward. What you're doing is phenomenal. And I want you to know that. What you're doing is phenomenal. You found a way to take faith outside of the traditional pews.
Yeah.
And you're challenging this idea of whether God told you to, which I think is phenomenal, but you're saying, I don't even have to financially gain for me to be concerned about other people finding out this news that I find about. That's powerful. That's powerful. So what you're doing is, please continue to do it. I think at the same time, you are one of many people, I think, that you call from this generation, which I think is a multitude of people. I think you saw a system and you're challenging that system. And in your own way, to give Dr. Drake credit, you're being a defiant one. Your innovation is positive rebellion. You're finding ways to innovate in a faith-based system that might not have necessarily been set up the same way that you wanted it to be. So continue to do that. I think you're going to have business leaders, you're going to have entrepreneurs that come alongside and also contribute to that in their own way. Because regardless of what religion you believe in, there's people that are frustrated with all of them. Right. Practicing believers, devout believers that are frustrated with all of them. So
religion will always let someone down. That's why we have to have the relationship. Religion is like a checkbox. If you don't stay in this line right here, over there, in religion, you've broken the system. You're kicked out. But Christ is saying it's about relationship, me talking to you, you talking to me. So I agree. Institutions, they have had the story jaded. And the way they paint the picture can kill the whole game. That's why the message that I think the Bible speaks and what I would speak is that it's about relationship, not this box. So you're right. We're trying to go beyond just church walls and trying to just play the game, man, in a new way. Yeah. That's it.
Man, I appreciate you, bro.
Man, y'all are crazy. Thanks for the invitation.
It's amazing.
Appreciate you, man.
I love the conversation, man, and keep playing the game. I appreciate y'all.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you, man.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Somebody's Son podcast. We encourage you to share this episode with a friend. And remember, on this path called life, you are not alone. Thank you for watching. Until next time.
She liked the way that I finessed her. She stared